Hello, everybody. I hope you are having a wonderful day. I just want to start off by saying Happy Veterans Day to everyone, not just the military veterans who have served their countries, their various countries all around the world because they love their countries and wanted to do the right thing, but I want to thank all of the people who have been engaged in spiritual warfare, who are veterans of this spiritual war that the children of God, the souls from the Most High Holy God, have been engaged in since war broke out in heaven. Unfortunately, the reason why we have veterans, so many veterans, is because we have so many wars. We live in a realm, a world that has always been at war, that is in a state of perpetual war. No matter how far you go back, you can go back to the Old Testament of the Bible, war after war after war, always at war. You go back even further than that, the fall of the fallen angels who were they're called the pagan gods now that we see the evidence on earth, and the old world order tries to cover it up, what it is. But you can still read the ancient texts, even though we are taught they are mythologies, and in every culture, those fallen angels, the pagan gods, they warred amongst themselves. All of them. The gods were always fighting each other, killing each other. You can go down the line into, the Middle Ages. You have royal families. They were even within their families. They would, you'd have a son that would kill their own father to steal the throne, or a cousin who would kill the heir to the throne, or what, their own family members were at war with one another. All of the other nations of the world, it was world war. That's why they were called world wars. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. The world was at war. World War I, World War II. We have the mafia wars. We have veterans because we have wars. So in this video, I would like to talk about the war that we are all living through, that has already begun, that we are well into and coming to the end of. Actually, if you look at the biological warfare portion of it, none of the rest of it's going to matter if we don't win the biological war over our own bodies. So I want to talk about specifically the Venezuela issue. Why are we talking about attacking Venezuela and just over drug boats after all the gangs and drug cartels that we've allowed to just swarm our country all these years? Why Venezuela? Why is it a target right now? To put things into perspective, because we get so many little sound bites, and we have the 2-minute, news cycle where with the short attention spans. I just want to give a bigger overall view why Venezuela is so important right now. And I'd like to discuss some of the front lines of World War III that don't get a lot of coverage in mainstream media, like the timeline of the weather warfare. So I've done posts on it. This is back from July. I'd like to go through that and show you date by date how this is retaliation and retaliation and retaliation, and how it all lines up that this is part of the weather war. This is really happening. And now might be a pretty good time to talk about that in the big picture, especially since Tucker Carlson just did a podcast on it, just did an interview about some of these events, like the Texas deep freeze, that they literally took out the power grid of Texas, and, it was an attack on Texas. So since Tucker has such a huge platform and people are sort of searching that to find clips of it, I'm going to go ahead and talk about that in this warfare video as well. I know that many of us are battle weary, but hang in there. This is the end of the age and things are about to change. But thank you to all of the veterans of the military, veterans of this long, hard-fought spiritual war for our Holy Father God and the kingdom of heaven. And thank you for all of the veterans of the information war. The Soros attorneys and all of that who have stripped Alex Jones of the title InfoWars. They're going to own it now and use it against us and all of that. They don't own the information war, and nor does Alex Jones. We've all been engaged in this information war, many of us for many, many decades, and it has cost many of us dearly. not just financially and being fired from our jobs and debanked and deplatformed and all of that, and being drug into court. I was drug into court, them trying to take our children away if we disagreed with what they were saying, whether it was the trans agenda or whether it was just something political. I mean, for me, it was just conspiracy theories. My website was brought up, my book was brought up in court constantly, years and years and years, where they were trying to use my YouTube channel, my book, my website, to make me look crazy. And we've shown in past videos the clips during the COVID era, people broadcasting from within the hospital that their own families had them committed to mental institutions for like a 72-hour stay because they would not take the COVID injections. And they thought, oh my God, they've gone crazy. They've been watching that stuff on the interweb. And, they literally committed family members. But for many of us that it wasn't taken to that extreme, you have lost loved ones. We've lost marriages, relationships with some of our grown children I've had people tell me about. Just absolute horrors of persecution and isolation just for carrying forth the truth, for not being willing to bow down and forsake your witness for Jesus Christ. In this world, where the narrative was pretty tightly enforced. And I'm not just talking about the big social media influencers. I'm talking about every single one of you who have ever shared a link, shared a post, texted an article, texted a video to your friends or family, even though you knew that you would be ridiculed and called a conspiracy theorist, and 9 chances out of 10 they would never even open it and watch it. But you fought to get the truth out, and that's what it took for all of us to play our part in this in unity, because they had locked down the mainstream media and all of the search engines. They had censored all of our voices. They had begun rounding up all of the journalists and all of the patriots, even the attorneys that defended the patriots. It was like full on Nazi Germany. I hate to use that because now everybody's a Nazi, but I mean, it was. Or I guess KGB. How do you like that? That's a little better. It was full on KGB, that they had completely censored all of the information and begun rounding up everybody, deplatforming everybody. The censorship was in full raging warfare. You could type in the exact title of something and the person, and it would not pull up in the search engine. That's how thorough they were at erasing us from existence. So it took crowdsourcing and crowdfunding in this information war to keep getting the truth out. And we did it. The Great Awakening is here, and I can testify to that because I was in this war, this information war, back in the late 90s, and you could not speak openly about anything that is mainstream news now. Many of you younger people who weren't born till the 2000s, I mean, lots of people in their 20s and 30s, you can't even imagine what it was like that if you had someone in your family who saw a UFO, you didn't speak about that publicly. I mean, you might whisper about it behind closed doors. Oh, Donna Lola's kids, they say that they saw a UFO, and they're crazy. And I've talked to like my cousins and asked them about incidents that our family knows about. And to this day, and they're in their 60s, they still will not tell me what they saw because they don't want people to think they're crazy, because that's what it was like. The same with all of the encounters that every family has where someone in their family has seen a ghost, or all of it. It wasn't spoken of. Unless you wanted to be that crazy person, that black sheep of the family that always talks about forbidden stuff, and everybody thinks you're crazy, and which a lot of us did anyway. But now here it is, right? It's on 60 Minutes. The Pentagon, the government's like, oh yeah, they were right all along. They were ostracized and persecuted and silenced, but yeah, of course, they were right all along. That was going on. They did see that. Yeah, that farmer did see that. Your cousin did see that. So younger people in their 20s and 30s probably think it was always like this. They don't realize that we are in full swing of the Great Awakening. They're like, yeah, so what? So they still haven't told us everything. They haven't declassified the Epstein files and stuff. And it's like, oh my gosh, if you only knew how far we have come in a short amount of time. And back then, there was no internet. So you couldn't find camaraderie or support. And a lot of people felt like they were the only one that these things were happening to. Now, the kids born into the internet age, they're scrolling all day long. They're on information overload. Nothing is shocking to them anymore. Some of the stuff they look at as kids is shocking to me as an adult. But back then, in the early days of this information war, there was no way to get information. There was no way to share information. People were so in the dark. So when we say from darkness to light and the Great Awakening, we're not kidding. I don't care if you like it or you don't like the lingo or I don't care. I've lived it, and I have lived in the dark ages, and I have lived in the light. And I am so grateful that I have lived long enough to see the truth come out, or part of it, enough of it now that they can listen from here on out, that they're able to bear it. This is no small thing. This is not just about UFOs or figuring out that there are other dimensions or one little thing. This has been a building block process that has gone on for millennia. Thousands of years ago, Jesus Christ said, here recorded in John 16:12, as well as many other places, he was telling his disciples after they had already walked together for 3 years with him teaching them for 3 years straight. And the Lord says, I still have much to tell you, but you cannot yet bear to hear it. These are people who walked with the Lord in the flesh, walked with him and lived with him, ate with him, were taught by him personally for 3 years. And Jesus said, I still have much to tell you, but you cannot yet bear to hear it. But when he, the Holy Spirit of truth, comes, he will lead you and guide you into all truth. And we are living in the era, in the generation where that comes to fruition, where to talk about other dimensions or, quote, spiritual realms, it's not just religion. This is fact. This is part of reality. And now we can talk about that. There is an end to this, and that's good news. Some people are scared of the end. It's the end. The end of what? The end of war? Why would you be scared of the revelation of Jesus Christ? To have true peace, to be restored, to balance, to utopia, to heaven. Why would that scare you? We want this to end. This age of war should end. The gospel of Jesus Christ and the revelation of Jesus Christ is good news. So yes, there is an end, and this is coming to an end. We have faithfully carried the testimony generation upon generation. We have unveiled the truth in this age of deception, this age of deceit that we were born into. Some people call it the little season. However you want to look at it. The fact of the matter is we were born into a lie, and God has faithfully unveiled layer upon layer, as much as we can bear, as fast as we can bear it, to show us the truth, to reveal the truth. And at the bottom of that rabbit hole, you will find the ultimate truth. There is a bottom, there is an end, and what you will find is the truth of Jesus Christ. It is the revelation of Jesus Christ. So if you go to the book, The Revelation of Jesus Christ, yes, that book is called The Revelation of Jesus Christ. It's not Revelations. It's not just a bunch of revelations. It is specifically about the revealing of Jesus Christ, the apocalypse. The apocalypse doesn't mean war. That's Armageddon that means war. Apocalypse means the pulling back of the curtain. It means the unveiling. It means the removal of the final veil, the revelation of Jesus Christ. As symbolized to this very day in many of our cultures, where at the wedding, when a couple becomes one, that the last thing that the groom does is he removes the veil and lets the bride see his face clearly. And that's why all through the book of the Revelation of Jesus Christ, it talks about the marriage supper of the Lamb. It talks about the, quote, bride of Christ. It's the removing of the veil. And in Revelation 10:7, it says right here, but in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants the prophets. It doesn't go on forever. He will reveal himself. And at the end of this, the mystery of God will be finished, and Jesus Christ will be revealed as that ultimate truth. Thank you. We have now arrived at the tipping point where we can have these conversations. Yes, it's not 100% easy or any of that, but we are here. We are here thanks to your efforts, thanks to everybody's unified efforts to not let the truth be snuffed out. And there are many others fighting in many other theaters who have had their lives destroyed and their success of their families stripped away from them to punish them for fighting on the many fronts of this battle. Whether you have been fighting the abortion movement to save the babies, whether you have been fighting to save the children who are being human trafficked. I mean, it's just mind-boggling to see the sacrifices that the servants of the Lord have made and are making every day while people are just going about their lives, going to work, just turning a blind eye, while more Christians are being massacred, raped, tortured, kidnapped in Nigeria than Palestinians killed in Gaza. And there are protests all over the college campuses for the Palestinians, right? Even here in America, we have people sent to prison for praying. Not fined, not given community service like all of the immigrant rapists and stuff. They just turn right back out on the streets without bond. No, here's a black woman who's separated from her family, from her own child, put in a cage. They sentenced her to 3 years for praying. And I didn't see any college campus protests about it. And she didn't get a single mural painted for her like George Floyd, who was a career criminal who died of a drug overdose, who held a loaded gun to a woman's pregnant belly, and he was worshipped as some sort of hero. Well, today, Mrs. Bevelyn Williams, we salute you. We thank you for your service, for your sacrifice, for your courage.
Look at Mama. Look at Mama. Look at us.
These are the veterans that I'm talking about on all fronts of this war, this celestial war, this cosmic war, this war of the ages. These are the battle-hardened, faithful saints of the Most High God. They're in every nation. Here's another one, a woman arrested, where was it, over in the UK, I think, for praying in her head, for literal thought crime.
I'm still trying to get my mind around the fact that I've been arrested for silent thoughts going on in the privacy of my own head.
What are you here for today?
Physically, I'm just standing here.
It seemed quite Orwellian, to be honest. I was just simply standing a short distance away from a closed abortion centre, saying my prayers in my head, and that was it. I was clearly just standing there, motionless. I was completely silent. I let the police officers know that I might be praying inside my own head. That's all I was doing, thinking, lifting up my thoughts to God in silent prayer. This was enough for them to arrest me and take me to the station. Later, they let me know that I've now been charged on 4 counts because of the thoughts I've been thinking and where I was thinking them. Freedom of thought, conscience and belief are the most fundamental rights and are an essential part of our human identity. My name's Isabel. I'm a friend to some, a sister to others, a charity worker, a Christian. I'm not a criminal.
And this is precisely why I am always beating the drum about the artificial intelligence and the AI technology with the mind reading, with the brain mapping that Obama financed through the DOD and all of the tech companies, and how now their AI is trained to read our brain frequencies and reconstruct our thoughts. And, like we talk about always, the thought crimes. Don't think for a minute that the technocracy is just creating all of this mind reading, mind captioning technology just so you can have a cool experience of texting from thought instead of speech to text, or for quote, prompt thinking. And these are all new clips just from this week, not the ones that I've shown you over and over and over, where it shows you on the screen that it can completely decode your thoughts, even pictures, what you're thinking, a picture, an image in your head. No, this is new releases from this week. This is November 10th, about a research team in Japan and their quote, mind captioning technology. There's all sorts of them. This one is interesting. I just wanted to put this one up here, introducing telepathy or telepath. It's called Telepath, because the very next video series that I'm going to upload here on YouTube. Now, if you're on Rumble and BitChute and the other, the Apple podcasts, I'm talking about the full version, 6 and 7 hour video that will be broken down as a series here on YouTube, because nobody on YouTube has seen it yet, or, the people who are just on YouTube, which surprisingly was a lot. I found out when they reinstated my account, there were just hundreds and hundreds of comments immediately, like, there you are, where have you been? I'm like, I've been out here making videos, just not on YouTube. So this will be uploaded next, right after this video, as I think it's a 4-part series. I break it down maybe 5 parts. Anyway, it'll be uploading next. And in there's several sections on telepathy that are mind-boggling, going all the way back to the 60s and 70s and the MK Ultra experiments, and how they isolated genes from different frequencies, animals that perceive in different frequencies. How like a dog can hear audible frequencies we can't hear, or dolphins communicate in higher frequencies, and they would take these genetic sequences from the dolphins and stuff, and were doing these experiments on these people, and they give their accounts from back. The clips that I use are like from back in the 80s. This isn't new stuff. And then I lead into the new information about autistic people. What have these gene therapy injections been doing to them? Why can they hear? Why do they have this camaraderie with dolphins as if they can communicate? It's one of the therapies that they will take these nonverbal autistic kids, and they will be so happy they can communicate with a dolphin. They will take them to be with dolphins. And then I wade way out in the deep water, and I start just showing you fringe clips of teachers who have worked with these nonverbal autistic children, and after developing a relationship with them, began hearing them speak in their heads, and developed a verifiable, tested, scientifically tested telepathic communication. But it's way, way more interesting than that, way more fascinating than that, way more verifiable than that. And this is the super interesting thing. When I put that interview in that series about the nonverbal autistic children testing positive for these incredible telepathic traits, it sounded so fringe. I was like, ugh, I don't know if they're ready for this. Because when God first told me, I didn't have the interviews or what's here on the screen right now, the telepathy tapes, which Joe Rogan has mentioned on his podcast now. So you can go back and check the dates from when I uploaded that video on Rumble and BitChute and stuff. It was before this podcast ever released. So I was just going straight off the word of the Lord. And it was so overwhelming to me, the next level information that the Lord was revealing about, we talk about the Ubermensch program and how they never stopped trying to create this superhuman, this master race that are like the gods and all of that they never stopped that program. So as absolutely sad as it is, one, sad that they are doing human experimentation and all of these crimes against humanity, and that our children are on this autism spectrum, that many of them are having lucid dreams. They have maps. They talk about it on TikTok amongst themselves. They're like, and there's an arena there, and they draw the maps and show them, and everyone's like, that's the same place I go. That it's not just dreams, it's not just lucid dreams. I've talked again in these same video series this past year. I talked about, I call them the realm walkers, but these telepathic kids are full in, the nonverbal autistics. They have this place that they meet at, a meeting place, and it's all documented in the telepathy tapes. So, and she went all around the world. Kai went all around the world doing these interviews. She brought scientists, she brought, film crews. She talked to all of the parents. She interviewed everybody involved, and then tested them, like on camera, tested them to see if they could read their parents' mind and how far they could. Could they read them if they were in a different room, or did they have to be touching them or looking at them? And no, they could read them from another room of the house, and I think even beyond. I know that the telepathic kids could read each other, because some of them who were best friends in the realm where the higher frequency where they communicate lived in different countries, like across the ocean. There was one was like a boyfriend and girlfriend in the realm, in the same frequency together, and they lived in different countries, but they spent like every day together in the realm because their consciousness is there and their bodies are here. It's so sad that this is a crime against humanity, but this is something we need to talk about, because the science, what we call, the science is settled. These gene therapy injections aren't genetically modifying. It's like, yes, I can lay out the progression of it from the 40s, 50s, 60s up until now, to where we have this, quote, autism epidemic. They're completely ignorant of this information. They don't read it in their highly censored textbooks. They don't know what autism is. They deny what even causes it. And especially, even if you showed them this information, they would grapple with accepting that this was done intentionally. Okay, let's get back to it. I didn't mean to spend like 8 minutes just talking about the entity series and the telepathy tapes. That is actually in the video series I'm going to upload right after this, and not this one. But as it pertains to this one, this is a huge part of the war. Huge. This is the biological warfare. So when we talk about this AI mind reading technology, and all of a sudden a company comes out introducing telepath, and it's got the Illuminati all-seeing eye as a logo, I mean, these technocrats are serious. And what we've been talking about and warning about all of these years isn't sci-fi. I know a lot of people want to watch this type of content and think, it's just like watching the X-Files. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. No, this is war. We are at war, and we are being slaughtered and maimed. I mean, they are, instead of kidnapping our children's like bodies, you talk about human trafficking, they are kidnapping their souls. They are taking their consciousness to another frequency range, to another dimension, and leaving their bodies here. And nobody's doing a damn thing about it. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only person talking about it. Not just the telepathy part, but this trafficking of souls, the realm walkers, what they have done, what the autists are actually going through, what the spectrum of assimilation, the spectrum of infection, the spectrum of how many neurons are linked into what all of that actually is. I find it incredibly infuriating. It's so crystal clear that any doctor who actually wanted to learn, any expert in all of these, the link of AI, bio and tech medicine, all that, should see this immediately. And they should be able to identify the level of damage inflicted by this biological warfare and how far along in this program we are. Because like I mentioned in this video on the screen, who is running who about the AI and our military industrial complex, I put it out around the time of Charlie Kirk's assassination. In there, I talk about how people are so easily being led astray that, we're going into this golden age. It's the golden era. Everything is going to be great, and we're going to have all this new tech, and, the economy is going to be great. Everybody's going to have, this, that, and the other. And I lay out the case that, no, that's not where we're going. I mean, because I know that because we're already there. This already happened. These children are already linked in. This technology has already been deployed. In this video, I show the evidence and present the case that we are so far along now, there is it doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if they send out $1 million stimulus check Everybody gets on universal income and they give you $1 million a month. Irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant because we're talking mark of the beast. We're talking about them stealing our souls. We're talking about the loss of free will. Literally, when you think you are having thoughts, but the thoughts in your head are not yours. That level of subtle manipulation. The Antichrist pretending to be God. Like, it's here. The AI has telepathic abilities, and I lay it out in there. It's the DARPA N3 project, and it's a two-way interface. You know, they're talking about here, this company Telepathy, they're talking about it reading our brainwaves. That's all anybody wants to talk about, right? It's reading our brainwaves. But what they fail to remind you of is that it's also speaking to us in brainwaves. It's speaking to us in frequencies like your Wi-Fi router speaks to your computer hardware. It's putting the frequencies in our head. Schizophrenia is epidemic along with the autism. Well, again, I've done interviews about that. Please go back and watch that stuff. I know a lot of people, I can see from the view counts, a lot of people are like, if it comes out like in the last 2 hours, then I'm going to watch it. But they won't go back like 3 weeks or 2 years. But if you go back about 3 weeks, here is a gem of a video that sadly has only gotten about 2,000 views. So nobody has this information. But we talk in depth about schizophrenia there with a highly qualified psychiatric whistleblower. I mean, this guy worked with the criminally insane for 40 years in state facilities and in the prison system, listening day after day to people say, you know, to murderers, to people who are locked up for the rest of their life, talking about, you know, why do you do it? Because of the voices. And if you go way back on my channel, like 7 years ago on my channel, this video here on the screen, we were already talking about it back then. This biological warfare, how they had replaced 8% of the human genome already. But anyway, if you click on that, you'll see that right at the beginning, I started showing articles, not just that 8% of the human genome had been replaced and the new DNA snippets, the CRISPR-Cas9 gene sequence inserts, were being inserted by viruses. Obviously, you know, DNA and RNA viruses. Now we know that a computer virus, which is an algorithm, is the exact same thing as an airborne virus, which is a nanotech, which is smart dust, which is also an algorithm. Or if you don't know, please go over to my website to this video right here on the right, this one with the blue DNA strand and the little virus looking thing. It's what, 3 rows down, 3 full rows down, right here on the right. COVID virus and computer virus equals same thing. Bioweapons and biohacking DNA, smart viruses. That's what we are dealing with. AI nanotech. They are smart viruses. They need our cells to self-replicate. So anyway, they are neural implants and they use optogenetics. So all of that is there in that video. I say that because I just now realized that I don't think that video is on YouTube, and that's an old one. That's several years back. So while I'm moving my archive over onto YouTube and doing all of the re-uploads of the older videos, I will move this one over onto YouTube as well so it can reach some more people who might be interested. Anyway, it's over on my website if you can't find it, and if you don't know that they are the same thing. Except one algorithm just infects your computer system, like your hard drive, and you can throw your computer away. But the other one infects your body. That's why Bill Gates works with computer viruses, supposedly wrote the first computer virus, the self-replicating infection, and now he is highly involved in medical viruses and messenger RNA injections. To the masses, they don't see the connection there, that it's the same thing, that they're both computer viruses, that they're both algorithms. They don't see it because they've been lied to their whole lives about what these injections are. But anyway, what I wanted to point out here is all the way back then, 7 years ago, we were already talking about schizophrenia, voices in the head caused by viruses. So we were pointing out the anomalies that isn't that strange when you go to a medical doctor with schizophrenia, they never tell you it's contagious. They're not like, oh yeah, you can catch schizophrenia. No, they don't say anything like that. Although they already had evidence of that all the way back in 2010. So 15 years ago at least, and probably before that. And again, I submit that the reason nobody talks about it and they don't put it in their textbooks is because they know. They know that the AI, this is part of the AI interface, the neural lace that allows this telepath program. And they don't want you to make the connection. They don't want the doctors to start thinking along those lines that, hey, wait a second, could this be nanotech infection that is giving people voices in their heads and they're seeing visions and images and hallucinations and, the realm walking and all of it? Could it be an AI interface, a brain-machine interface, a BMI, a BCI, a brain-computer interface? Because that is exactly what it is. Okay, that's enough about the biological warfare. Let's get on to some more fronts of this war that we are in right now. Not that that isn't probably the most important one, the DARPA N3 project, but you can go back and get all of the information on that in other videos. I want to move on to Venezuela, what is going on in Venezuela, and talk about that in context a little bit, because to some people, not to many of you, but especially people who just woke up during like the faux Biden administration over the last few years. So they weren't here when we did all of the Titan Point research and all of that during the election fraud. We weren't even allowed to say that word. Literally, we could not say election fraud. Can you believe it? So they may not have been exposed to any of the information. And the attorneys who filed the lawsuits back then dealing with Venezuela's involvement were disbarred, arrested, same way with the generals, Flynn, Sidney Powell, everybody who was exposing this now that we are handling all these years later. In fact, that's sort of breaking news the last few days too. So let's talk about that, because they were just pardoned. The people who exposed Venezuela back then and were persecuted for it. So the big news was that Trump finally pardoned Sidney Powell, Jenna Ellis, Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, all the attorneys that were arrested for filing lawsuits to expose the evidence. Now, if you look at the mainstream news, you'll see a lot of the typical propaganda, from the left-wing media. Trump pardons Giuliani and other allies who sought to overturn the 2020 election, right? So they're still trying to keep their narrative alive. And it's working, because what we're about to talk about here, a lot of people never saw because of the censorship. What they heard in the CIA Mockingbird media was that all of these lawsuits had failed and all of this, and none of that's true. None of the evidence was ever heard. Instead, the Soros corrupt judges refused to hear the cases. These were excellent cases. These were ex-intelligence agency heads. They had witnesses, they had all the affidavits, they had all of the evidence, and nobody ever got to see it. But the mainstream media told everybody, oh, they were all defeated in court. No, the evidence was never allowed to be seen, nor were these people ever allowed to speak again. Not only were they arrested, as you can see here from all of their mugshots, just for filing it. These are attorneys who filed a lawsuit, and they were arrested for that. It's unbelievable, because they were trying to overturn, like it's insurrection or something. So fast forward all of these years later, it is no coincidence that at the very same time that Trump is launching this large-scale operation against Venezuela, although they are not calling it a war, they have moved our Navy out into that region. They have sent special forces. They have sent a CIA operation into the country. They have talked about that we might have to send more troops on the ground like we are into Mexico. And simultaneously, because they are good at running their psychological operation as well, simultaneously at the very same time that they start tackling the Venezuela situation, then he pardons all of these attorneys and all of these intelligence officers and all of these people in the government that had the full knowledge of what happened with Venezuela and Smartmatic and Dominion voting machine and Soros and all of it.
What we are really dealing with here and uncovering more by the day is the massive influence of communist money through Venezuela, Cuba, and likely China in the interference with our elections here in the United States. The Dominion voting systems, the Smartmatic technology software, and the software that goes in other computerized voting systems here as well, not just Dominion, were created in Venezuela at the direction of Hugo Chavez to make sure he never lost an election after one constitutional referendum came out the way he did not want it to come out. We have one very strong witness who has explained how it all works. His affidavit is attached to the pleadings of Lynn Wood in the lawsuit he filed in Georgia. It is a stunning, detailed affidavit because he was with Hugo Chavez while he was being briefed on how it worked. He was with Hugo Chavez when he saw it operate to make sure the election came out his way. That was the express purpose for creating this software. He has seen it operate, and as soon as he saw the multiple states shut down the voting on the night of the election, he knew the same thing was happening here, that was what had gone on. Well, I can hardly wait to put forth all the evidence we have collected on Dominion, starting with the fact it was created to produce altered voting results in Venezuela for Hugo Chavez, and then shipped internationally to manipulate votes for purchase in other countries, including this one. It was funded by money from Venezuela and Cuba, and China has a role in it also. So if you want to talk about foreign election interference, we certainly have it now. We have staggering statistical evidence. We have staggering testimony from witnesses, including one who was personally in briefings when all of this was discussed and planned. The contents, or some of the contents of the government patents that I believe we discussed briefly last week, that show that starting in at least 2003, the government itself developed an interest in and funded patents that will both real-time audit an election, allow them to manipulate the votes in an election, and inject false voters and false identifications for voters, as well as generate an algorithm that can predetermine the results of an election depending on the way they want it to come out. And those are at defendingtherepublic.org, and the full patents are posted on the website now.
So that was a 2006 DOD patent, correct?
Yes, the patents were actually issued, I think, in 2006 and maybe one in 2009, but they were applied for, and provisional patents were granted much earlier than that. And the research probably began much earlier than that, too. And then we've also identified, thanks to some patriots who brought it to our attention, video that was done back in 2004 of a man who actually testified in front of a House Judiciary Committee field meeting in Ohio about having written an algorithm himself in the year 2000 at the request of a person in Congress who wanted an election rigged. So this has been going on a long time. What I find especially troubling is that it's been brought to the attention of officials. I'm documenting now at a number of times that people in positions of authority have been notified of this and done nothing about it, turned a blind eye to it. The only conclusion we can draw from that is that politicians, business leaders, global titans, corrupt government officials, whoever you want to call it, whatever it is, a large group of they out there have known this for a long time and have been using it to manipulate our elections as far back as the year 2000.
So that is what is going on here. It wasn't just about election fraud. It was never just about election fraud. This is about world war. We are at war not with a nation state. We are at war with a crime syndicate. And it's not just about fentanyl. It's not about fishing boats that are drug running. It's about so much more than that. This is a world war. What we have are several nations who conspired to overthrow the United States of America through asymmetrical warfare. Venezuela being one of them. We all just lived through a coup d'etat, a color revolution. It really happened. It's not going to happen, about to happen. It already happened. They have spent decades and decades taking over the government. Using these, like Sidney Powell said, we found out that they were using these voting machines all the way back in 2003. The DOD was involved. Our own government worked with Venezuela. I mean, rogue, corrupt actors within our own government. There still are people in the government who want to fight this thing, and they're doing it. They could have just walked away and left it alone, and we were dead and gone. Our nation was completely overthrown. And still we are fighting. We are still in the middle of that coup. I mean, we are being raised from the dead. We are making progress, and we have taken ground on several fronts. We've taken ground back. But, for one, these immigrants, because Venezuela not only was one of the foreign countries who infiltrated our elections, but then after they installed the regime that was pretending to be Biden, whoever was running the auto pen, whoever was calling the shots, which largely appears to be China and also Cuba. And that's precisely why, even though a lot of us were not big fans of Marco Rubio, that Trump picked Marco Rubio for Secretary of State to be handling all this, because his family comes from Cuba. They escaped this same communist network. He knows all about it. But both of those communist nations, Venezuela and Cuba, are obviously, in my humble opinion, working for China, communist China, the CCP. I mean, they stay in the shadows, they try to keep their name out of things. But as you'll see later toward the end of this video, when we talk about Tren de Aragua, which is here on the screen, that literally is the Venezuelan cartel. That's them, the very same Venezuelan cartel that runs Maduro, that runs the government. If you follow the crime syndicate, just like all drug running cartels, not everybody is a mob boss. They have street level gang members, and that's Tren de Aragua. So when they overthrew America and finally took control from the White House under the guise of this Biden regime, the first thing they did was open the borders, and they let all of their troops in. So that's a very real thing. We know that China had an organized movement of troops and even set up a Chinese police station on American soil. They had their own foreign police station. So if you want to see the actual evidence for that, and the clips, and the troops coming across the border with their matching boots and matching backpacks, please watch this video all the way till the end, because actually one of the very last segments in this is Venezuela again. And it's all of those details, the fine details about how China is linked to Venezuela, how, follow the money, follow the supply lines, follow the plan. Like, if you want to know more about that, to know why I would say such a thing, please watch the last half of this video all the way to the end. I spent a lot of time laying out the case, and this is why it ties into 11/11, and I wanted to post that message at the end of this, is because I received this message right after the election in 2024. It was 11/11, obviously. It was Veterans Day, November 11th of 2024, exactly 1 year ago. And there must be some significance to why God gave it to me that day, when I had no plan at all to make a video or anything like that. And I had made no preparation with clips or anything to get ready for it. I just sat down under the Holy Spirit. I woke up in the Holy Spirit first thing in the morning and was like, get up and tell them this. And I guess it was because everyone was still celebrating, right in the beginning, everyone was just like, it's perfect, Elon and Trump and all the billionaires love us and it's going to be great. And, we're going to take down this thing and we're going to have the Epstein files day one. Everyone was really celebrating. And rightfully so. I mean, we dodged a bullet with Kamala. It would be like the UK here right now. They would be like, were you thinking about God in your head while not doing anything, just standing there? You are under arrest. So it wasn't to throw a wet blanket on the celebration. It was a literal message from God. The Holy Spirit woke me up. I woke up in the Holy Spirit and sat down and recorded this message, which was an urgent warning that, hey, we can't celebrate yet. These people are serious and this is who they are. Like, we have a formidable enemy and look how big it is. This is a monolithic monster of an enemy. Like, this is not something you can just defeat with an election. This is huge. And then I proceed to lay out the entire case. And so I thought that it would be appropriate when I made this video today on 11/11 that I would tack that segment onto the end so you can see all of the details and you can hear it in the Holy Spirit. I'm literally in the Holy Spirit when I'm making that video, so I am 100% certain that that warning was from the Lord, not to let our guard down. Not quite yet. We're not quite done yet. Okay, I know, you get it. I'm just rambling at this point because, like I said, I'm getting tired. So I'm going to switch gears and go ahead and jump into this World War III weather warfare timeline. Just to throw out a couple of dates. I'm going to go over it really quick. The only reason I wanted to mention it today is because I wanted to throw in a few clips from the 11/11 video. And it has to do with this type of warfare, not like invasions and stuff. It has to do with people seeing what could be misperceived as natural events, right? Because you can't attack an enemy. You can't attack China just because you have an earthquake. You can't attack Russia just because a hurricane pops up and takes out all of your port cities and your military bases. Is that an attack? While we're sending missiles to Ukraine, they can say, yeah, that is the United States. That is an attack from the United States. They sent the ATACMS and they fired missiles directly onto Russian soil and took out their military bases, took out their airplanes, took out their flight lines. They can absolutely 100% say that is an attack by America through their proxy Ukraine. It was our bombs we gave them and we're like, here, shoot these at Russia. So they can say that about us. So that's the type of overt warfare that you would do when you just don't give a shit. But for them, the art of war with China, they want to stay in the shadows. They don't want to just come out and be like, we're just going to launch missiles. We're just going to nuke America. No, they are a sneaky snake. They're a dragon. They want to maintain their innocence through plausible deniability. So what we are seeing, though, if you look at the dates from when we attack them, and then they say publicly, we will retaliate, and then they never retaliate, we're like, oh, they're big talkers. Putin's always just blowing smoke, but he never actually retaliates. Well, he does. It's just we're not seeing it because it's coming in the form of weather warfare. So let's look at some of these dates. On September 18th of 2024, the Biden regime, they gave weapons to Ukraine, bombs to Ukraine to bomb the arms depot on Russian soil. They took out our port cities and infrastructure without dropping a single bomb. I mean, they just wiped it out. All sorts of military infrastructure. And I don't know, if you go over to this post, I think I list it all. Well, here, let me see. Maybe this is it. Yeah, this is it. They took out our roads, our highways, our supply lines, our truck lines, our rail transport, port cities, distribution centers, and a huge part of our energy grid, because those port cities, their Port Tampa Bay is a major hub for petroleum, which supplied the energy for nearly half of Florida's fuel. So then again in November, literally right after the election, so Biden had already and Kamala had already been voted out of office. So immediately after they found out that Trump was going to get back in office, they tried again to start the war with Russia, a nuclear war. They were trying to start a nuclear war to give Trump, I don't know if it was so that, when there's a declaration of war, you can suspend elections like Ukraine. That's why Zelensky's still in there. He hasn't had an election in forever. He's just like, I own this place now. So I don't know if they were trying to start the war with Russia so that they could just suspend the transfer of power and just the regime that had already overthrown America would just stay in power, or if they were just trying to start the war, because that's what they do. When their economy, their house of cards comes down, they start a war. It's what they do. They're like, we can blame it on Trump. Perfect. Just unload it on him. But anyway, so yeah, in November of 2024, right after the election, they did it again, and the U.S. decided to supply ATACMS missiles, which could be nuclear armed. These could be nuclear tipped, and there's no way Russia would know. You wouldn't know until they actually hit. But yeah, they supplied the long-range missiles to Ukraine, and they were shot deep into Russia. So Russia gets attacked on election day, and then on inauguration day, we get attacked. And again, they attacked our ports and infrastructure, and you can see, it's not the Gulf of Mexico anymore, it's the Gulf of America, and they took out basically the Gulf of America ports with a blizzard, which you can see these are record snow, like all-time record snowfalls. This is unheard of, but it happened. So by June of 2025, Trump is in office, and he's not defending Mexico, the Gulf of Mexico, he's defending the Gulf of America now. So it's one of the few times that the U.S. actually agrees with NATO to back these drone attacks on 4 Russian military bases, destroying 40 Russian nuclear bombers and runways. And Russia vows retaliation again. The retaliation didn't come in the form of tanks or bombs, but a month later, on July 4th, see how they're doing it? They do their retaliation on Inauguration Day. They do it on July 4th, which is our Independence Day. They do it on these specific dates. So anyway, they vow retaliation, and then on July 4th, cities all across the breadbasket of the USA, including the Texas campground, joined the, quote, summer of flash floods. They destroyed our crops, infrastructure, roads, railways, supply chains, and obviously many American lives, which just happened to be at Camp Mystic, which is well known to be a place where politicians and elitists send their children to camp. That's all the way back to Lyndon Johnson. Their kids went to that camp. And it's the 4th of July when the most people would be at that camp. Not to mention the Christians. That's when all of the Christian children were there for their Christian camp. So that's July 4th. So in the very same month, we retaliate. So July 29th of 2025, suddenly there's this massive earthquake right near Russia, and the local tsunami seems to have strategically targeted the Russian piers and underground infrastructure of Russia's entire Pacific fleet of nuclear submarines. While at the exact same time, simultaneously, that we're taking out, not us, just random weather event, is taking out Russia's Pacific fleet of nuclear submarines, at the exact same time, both Moscow and Beijing are being hit with flash floods. The capitals. That's the capital of China and the capital of Russia. And everybody knows about Tesla's earthquake technology that goes all the way back to the early 1900s. So they've had this type of warfare for over 100 years. But anyway, here is the map of where it hit and all of the Russian naval bases. And this is just a screenshot of Grok talking about how that earthquake and the repairs to the bases will set back their nuclear program in the Pacific 1 to 3 years, and that it will tilt the strategic balance toward NATO in the Asian Pacific theater. And the next 2 pictures are just news articles that, I took screenshots of to show the date, that this was also July 29th of 2025, And this one right here is Beijing and their flash flood while this earthquake was taking out the nuclear bases. And this is Moscow's flash flood, the capital of Russia. Probably just a coincidence. It is my opinion. It is just my opinion. I'm just saying, allegedly, this may not all be a coincidence. It might actually be weather war. And knowing how they target days like Inauguration Day, the 4th of July, Veterans Day, which is our military day, knowing how they do that. The reason I wanted to put this video up, this segment up, in the 11/11 video was because years ago I made 2 back-to-back 11/11 videos, and I put these clips in there about prophetic dreams and visions that people had about Veterans Day or 11/11, November 11th, and nobody who had these put it together that they're like, this is a Tesla earthquake weapon, or this is Russia attacking us, or something on Veterans Day. It's not that. These are just very straightforward information, prophetic glimpses about a massive earthquake that cripples the United States on 11/11 or on Veterans Day. So I'm going to play. This video has been deleted since YouTube. Like I said, they took down about 100 videos or so when they put my channel back up. And this was some of them for whatever reason. But I did still have the old file on my computer, so I just pulled up a clip from that, and I'll insert that right here.
Brother Jordan says he had a dream, and he was told the phoenix rises November 11th. The phoenix rises November 11th is what he was told, and he doesn't know what it means. But I definitely know what that means. That means that the Antichrist, the New World Order, the beast system rises. Now, the November 11th thing, I will tell you that the month of November, many of you know that the calendar has been changed. September is 7 with Sept. October, Octo is 8. November would be 9, so the 11th day of what we call the 11th month is really 9/11. Many people see 11/11 all the time, but I've seen 9/11 so much lately I can't keep track of it.
In my dream, I woke up and seen 11/11 on the alarm clock, and I've been seeing 11/11. It just stands out to me for a few years now, and I just didn't understand it. But he knew that would get my attention. So I wake up and I see 11/11 on the alarm clock, and I get up and I grab my daughter. She's 1, and everything starts shaking and moving, just trembling, and I knew that was an earthquake. I just knew it was an earthquake, and then I scream for my husband, and then all of a sudden I fall to the floor, but then I feel instant euphoria, like and then I just immediately woke up.
On the 6th of February this year, 2013, I woke from a dream of America having an earthquake. In that dream, I was walking past my TV in the lounge room, and I saw breaking news of a major earthquake. I turned to my son, my 15-year-old son, who was sitting on the lounge, as if to say, look, it's happening. And it was like I was expecting that, or I knew, like God had already told me that there was going to be a major earthquake, and now I was actually seeing it on the TV, the breaking news of it happening. And on the television, I turned back to the television, and it showed the strength of the earthquake. It showed that it was a 10 on the Richter scale. And then it went away from that scene, and I wasn't watching the earthquake or the footage anymore. I was actually looking down as the earthquake was happening. So it's like I was in the sky looking down at it. And I saw, just before the earthquake happened, I saw military, but not military that were actually working, more military that are wearing their formal uniform for a presentation. I don't know what you call it, but yeah, they were in their more formal uniform, and they were doing a gun salute, like a 21 gun salute. So it was like there was some sort of occasion that they were doing a gun salute, and this earthquake happened. And when the earthquake happened, I saw the ground not split apart as such. Well, it did split, but rather than sort of pulling away and making a big gap, it was one side rose up really, really high, while the other side obviously dropped away real low, like plates colliding. And yeah, so I thought that was really unusual that I saw these military people doing a gun salute at the time that it happened. So I thought there was some significance to that.
So of course the connection there is that there are only very few special occasions that they do a 21 gun salute, and today is one of them. So like right here, President Trump receives a 21 gun salute at Arlington Cemetery on Veterans Day, and this was 14 hours ago. Okay, I know how the easily triggered like to get up in arms right away and say, oh, setting dates, setting dates, setting dates. I'm clearly not setting the date for the return of the Lord or anything of the nature. I'm talking about an earthquake here, for starters. Secondly, I'm clearly not saying that today on Veterans Day, 11/11, Russia or China are going to hit us with a massive earthquake, because it's already after midnight right now while I'm talking right now and putting these clips in right now. So this day has actually passed. By the time you see this, it has actually passed at the time of this recording. So clearly nobody can say, oh, see, she was predicting an earthquake on 11/11 on Veterans Day and nothing happened. She's just a shill. And you know how people get. That's obviously not what I'm saying, since this day has already changed over to the next day. And it's 12:18 right now. I'm still working after midnight trying to get this out. And no, this did not happen today. So I am not setting a date. I am not saying that I expected an earthquake today. What I am saying is that this is an 11/11 video made on 11/11 about 11/11, and I thought these would be interesting clips to add to this video, because it is a common theme that I have seen over and over and over throughout the years, that Christians are having these prophetic dreams about some event happening on 11/11, being warned about it the specific time of year. And not just an event that quickly passes, because also over the years, I have seen multiple hundreds, maybe thousands of prophetic dreams and visions that all center around this time of year in the fall, around Thanksgiving, around Christmas, the end of October, which could indicate a series of events or a time of war, a time of attacks, a time of economic collapse, something of that nature, that wouldn't just be a 1 minute event and the next minute everything's fine, but from the end of October all the way through November, Thanksgiving, Christmas time, into the winter, people report having these prophetic dreams that there was a time of war. They were locked in their houses. There were soldiers outside. People who live in different states report that they dreamed their state was attacked, some with natural disasters and some with bombs. So I just thought this might be timely. This might be a good time to throw some of these clips in and remind people, throughout the years, I always remind people this time of year, because I've seen attacks, terrorist attacks on the interstates during the Thanksgiving, Christmas season. So it's pretty common for me this time of year, no matter what type of video that I'm putting out, to try and remind people just to keep their head on a swivel, be aware of their surroundings, and that there are lots of prophecies about this time of year. But they are running out of options, to the point that I believe about their only option at this point is war, that they are going to have to launch the false flags. I'm not convinced that America can be saved at this point. I mean, in its present form, like that this government can be saved. I'm not sure that it can be rehabilitated. I think that it might be either it's over, it's that far in the end, or it is to the point that we have to build the parallel society, Like that thing is coming down. Babylon is fallen. Babylon is coming down. And our job is not to try to save it and build it back better. It is to let it fall. And we as a people, we worry about each other. We survive together. We build our own thing together.
A tactic recommended by Václav Havel, a political dissident under Soviet communist rule, who later became president of Czechoslovakia, is the construction of what are called parallel structures. A parallel structure is any form of organization, business, institution, technology, or creative pursuit that exists physically within a totalitarian society, yet morally outside of it. In communist Czechoslovakia, Havel noted that these parallel structures were more effective at combating totalitarianism than political action. Furthermore, when enough parallel structures are created, a second culture, or parallel society, spontaneously forms and functions as an enclave of freedom and sanity within a totalitarian world. Or as Havel explains in his book, The Power of the Powerless. What else are parallel structures than an area where a different life can be lived? A life that is in harmony with its own aims, and which in turn structures itself in harmony with those aims. What else are those initial attempts at social self-organization than the efforts of a certain part of society to rid itself of the self-sustaining aspects of totalitarianism, and thus to extricate itself radically from its involvement in the totalitarian system? But above all else, what is required to prevent a full descent into the madness of totalitarianism is action by as many people as possible. For just as the ruling elite do not sit around passively, but instead take deliberate steps to increase their power, so too an active and concerted effort must be made to move the world back in the direction of freedom. This can be an immense challenge in a world falling prey to the delusions of totalitarianism, but as Thomas Paine noted, tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph.
Okay, so all of that being said, now I want to tack on that clip from this video here, which was the message that I received from the Lord on 11/11. And much of what you see in this video will expand on what we just talked about, like the Sidney Powell and the attorneys and the election fraud, because that's not just something, oh, that was election fraud, that was 2020, it's time to move on. No, this is showing you the strategy, what has been happening. Like here, this is an election map. I don't want you to fast forward through this part and just say, oh, the Kamala Harris election was over, big deal, you know, she didn't win. Because what I'm showing is that we are being surrounded here. This beast that we are up against, it is so strategic and so thorough that most people are not even thinking on the level that their think tanks have strategized this thing. Because these are battleground states, not just speaking politically. I mean, these are the entrance points for the invasion. Whether that is the invasion through the southern border here, or the invasion coming out of the oceans, so they have completely secured the entrance point on the west coast. I would not stay near the west coast. And of course, we all know about New York and Mamdani, and you know, they have secured much of the east coast as well for the invasion, and then coming down out of Canada. So again, I'm going to talk about Canada in this video. It was filmed right after the election, so Trudeau was still in office, but we know the guy who replaced him is no better. In fact, he's exactly the same. They're serving the same exact agenda. But anyway, so they have secured all of this region in Canada. There's a reason why they secured these states that border the Great Lakes, you know, for the submarine routes. I'll talk about all that in the video. But I'm rambling again. Sorry, I'm really tired. I don't need to sit here and tell you what's in the video when you're getting ready to watch the video. So here it is. I love you guys. God bless you and your families. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Sorry, my voice is a little hoarse. I just woke up. The Lord woke me up this morning with a message. So I'm just going to get right to it. I haven't done any preparation, so there won't be a lot of clips or anything. Today is 11/11. It is Veterans Day 2024. And this really just came out of nowhere. I had no intention to make a video on Veterans Day or anything like that. In fact, as a single mom, I never get to sleep in. And since there was no school today for my son and I was off work today, I just really wanted to sleep. I wanted to sleep, like just lay around all day and sleep. But I woke up, just shot straight up out of bed at, it was about 6 o'clock this morning. I don't know, 6:40 something. Wide awake with the Holy Spirit all over me, telling me all about this and that I needed to warn people, and I couldn't go back to sleep. So this is the message. While everybody's celebrating and distracted right now, God said the evil ones are meeting behind closed doors right now. The pawns of the shadow government, including many of our own military leaders, are meeting behind closed doors right now to move forward their plan, because they feel like they have lost grasp, and if they don't act now, it's going to be dismantled. So this is what the Lord showed me. He showed me a rapid series of maps and brought to my remembrance a rapid series of, I don't know, like a dozen prophetic dreams and visions from my set that he had given me in the past that have not yet come to pass, and ones that he had given others, which I will mention here right now. Okay, the first map was this, basically the election map. Then he peeled the veil off my eyes and said, this is not a political map, this is a military map. They have taken the port cities, they have secured communist control on the west coast and the east coast. They have secured the southern border invasion entry, which we are all very much aware of. But they have also secured the invasion entry from the north through Canada. He said, you are surrounded. And then he showed me the Donbass offensive, the military strategy that Russia, and it's an old time military strategy with the communists. This is how they do it. Long before the invasion, they make sure that they have encircled the area so that there is no escape. You can see this map. So they are ready to invade from the north, from the south, from the east, from the west. And I'm just showing these maps of Ukraine because that is what the Lord showed me to help me understand when he showed me the United States map. So I want to be clear. He did not say this morning that Russia is invading. That is not what I'm saying. He was showing me the map, how our map, they have surrounded us. He only said, open your eyes, you have been surrounded. They are meeting behind closed doors right now, debating on whether they should launch the attack immediately instead of waiting. Apparently, they had not planned on being dismantled or all of their troops that they imported, all of the foreign invasion being dismantled and moved out of place. But since that is a possibility, now they are meeting right now behind closed doors to decide if they should launch this thing on us immediately while their troops are in place. Now let me explain what the Lord said about troops in place. Surprisingly, this didn't have anything to do with the southern border at this point, or Gavin Newsom and Pelosi's communist coast out there. It had nothing to do with those port cities. I'm not saying the invasion doesn't, I'm saying what God showed me didn't. What he showed me was this here on the screen. This region is what they are in panic about. That the Marxist alliance, the deep state globalist Marxist alliance in Canada through Trudeau's corrupt government and our United States corrupt regime right now, that took the country by coup and massive election fraud in 2020. There is a regime behind both of those governments. Trudeau is not the mastermind, obviously, and Biden and Harris are not the mastermind of anything, obviously. The regime behind them is in panic right now because of this particular battlefront. We've talked about this before, that these states are called battleground states on purpose. These are the states that they needed to secure so their invasion and overthrow of the United States could be accomplished. They have a military strategy. I'm not aware of all of it. I've pieced some of it together like all of you have, but I'm just specifically talking about what the Lord showed me this morning. So in this region, this is why they are in panic, because their battleground states, which are the front lines that they needed to secure for this invasion through Canada, are being dismantled. And their military plan for this theater of war included all of these states being blue. You know, like they put Tim Walz in charge of Minnesota. Obviously, we all know he was recruited by the communists through the Confucius Society and trained in China. These are operatives. So they did hold that state. I don't believe the people in that state will lay down and take it. But apparently they have enough boots on the ground there that they think they can maintain control there. We saw that with the psychological operation, the George Floyd psyop, and the Minneapolis riots. They have the militarized left there on the ground, and they have the governor in place that will stand down. That's what they need. They need communist governors in place in all of these regions that will stand down and let their militarized forces on the ground burn the cities down. It's a war. It's asymmetrical warfare. So they won't call it terrorism, even though it's outright terrorist attacks on the United States. They're not going to call it what it is, but this is what it is. And that's why we see Gretchen Whitmer and these other operatives placed in charge of Michigan, because she absolutely will stand down. And she proved herself. That's how these people get into positions of power during the COVID lockdowns. She wouldn't even let people mow their yards, completely alone, nobody within hundreds of yards of them, but she was sending the police to make them turn their mower off and get back in their house. So this wasn't about the spread of disease. This was about control, and she was draconian, and that's why they have her in charge of Michigan. They need governors who will stand down and allow this invasion. So therein lies the panic. So then the Lord brought to my remembrance an old prophetic vision, and I don't have time. Like I said, I'm not prepared for this. You'll just have to take my word for it. Many of you run in the same circles as I do, so you have seen many of the prophetic dreams and visions about the coming invasion and all of that going back decades and decades and decades. So many of you will remember this. But anyway, this gentleman talked about being specifically shown an invasion from Canada down through Ohio, that the Lord revealed their military strategy to him, that they were specifically going to be coming through this region right through Ohio. So you can see the problem. That's why Pennsylvania is a battleground state. They want this whole area secured. So they have the East Coast, right? All the blue states are under communist control. Minnesota's under communist control. Again, yes, there are still communist infiltrators in all of these governments, but it looks like the people are rising up. The people will not lay down, like they did in Minneapolis, Minnesota during the George Floyd beta test. So this is what's happening right now, God said. I want to be perfectly clear. I want to give the message exactly as I received it. He did not say there is definitely going to be an invasion before Thanksgiving or Christmas. What he said was they are meeting behind closed doors right now, discussing whether they need to launch the invasion right now, move it forward before the January inauguration, before their troops that are in place can be disassembled. They might have to. They're not ready, but they might have to launch it now, because if they wait, they might lose millions and millions of foreign troops that they have in place, especially if Trump starts deporting like the Venezuelan gangs. And, those are the most ruthless. Those are the soldiers. Their plan was a smooth operation, that they would have already had all of these regions secured and everything in place, and it would be an easy transition going into Agenda 2030. But that's not happening. Their plan is falling apart, and they are behind closed doors right now, deciding whether to launch this invasion right now, the end of this year, right now, not 2025, not after Trump's inaugurated. They're behind closed doors, God said, right now, deciding if they are going to launch this holiday season, maybe even this month. That's how urgent this warning is. That's why I'm sitting here doing this instead of laying in bed getting some rest. Okay, here are some specific examples that the Lord showed me about them securing strategic locations, that they aren't just randomly busing immigrants around the United States. And it's not just because, oh, those are blue regions, they have sanctuary cities. They're so incompetent. No, they are not incompetent. They have never been incompetent. They are very strategic. The mask they wear is incompetence. That's why they chose Biden and Harris. They want us all to sit around making joke memes online while they're invading the country. So you may have noticed that they've chosen seemingly random small towns to just send in tens of thousands of immigrants and put them in barracks. I mean, hotels. And the people in those small towns are largely just complaining about not having the resources. Oh, it's an immigration crisis. We don't have the resources to care for all of these people. When they should be realizing that they have just been outnumbered, and why was their city chosen? Why strategically would their city be chosen to have this foreign invasion bust right into such an obscure small town? So let's start with one example, Logansport, Indiana. So you can see here, they've secured my state, which they have not. They've only secured Chicago. We voted all red. 90 of the 102 counties in Illinois here are all voted Trump. They don't want anything to do with the Democrats. But you know, our billionaire elitist prickster up there has the communist stronghold secured. So it is in northern Indiana that they have been busing the foreign troops in at strategic locations.
Logansport, Indiana, city officials are speaking out about the influx of migrants into their area, calling it unsustainable. Our next guest is a lifelong resident who says locals are not feeling safe there anymore and blames the Biden-Harris administration for what's happening in Logansport. Dave Price joins us now. Good morning to you, Dave.
Hey, good morning.
Dave.
How are you?
Good morning. I know you grew up in this small town, a population of 18,000, about 78 miles north of Indianapolis. And now what are you seeing? What are your concerns?
Well, we're just seeing a new influx of a population that Logansport is just not used to. We have had immigrants come in throughout the years to Logansport from the Mexico area. So we have a lot of Hispanics in the area, which they have acclimated very well. And they've grown their businesses and they've earned the respect of Americans, and we've respected them in return. But what we're seeing now is a little different. It's coming from a third world country coming into Logansport. And these individuals don't necessarily know the local laws or rules and how to behave here, basically. And we just ask that our local leaders, state and federal, take a look at Logansport, Indiana. We need some help here. We need some federal help. We need transparency between our local elected officials, and we need some more information and communication.
In 2021, there were 14 Haitian students in the schools. In 2024, there are 207. Housing, the health department said they're worried about safety because in some of these houses, there are 20 to 25 people living under one roof. Your mayor says it's not sustainable. They need help, and they have no idea how many people are coming in.
They're coming from a third world country into America, land of opportunity, and you know, this is brand new to them too. They probably feel like they won the lottery in a way, and it's just a new life for them. And they just need to adjust to the American life and learn to obey the laws here and how to behave.
Instead of him being able to present the news from his community and say, hey, we have been overrun. We have been invaded. They have taken over everything. They took over the food supply chain, right? The Tyson food processing plants are there. All the Haitians took over the food processing plants. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, and this is really gross, but this is happening in the food supply. I've had to throw away so much food that I get now. I ordered chicken tenders. And when I got them and opened them, you know how a chicken tender is shaped like it's in a triangle. There was a bite off the tip of every single chicken tender, a literal bite mark, a curved bite. Whoever was working in the processing plants, and it was under the breading. These were breaded chicken tenders. So whoever was working in the processing plants before they were breaded was literally taking a bite out of every piece of food. and then sending it down the line to us. And I got them. I'm telling you the truth. I got a whole bag of chicken tenders that had bites out of them. But I digress. We've talked a lot about them blowing up, burning down, taking over the entire supply chain, including all of the food processing plants. But what I want to talk about here is the military strategic placement. Okay, so right here, look it up. Logansport is located in northern Indiana at the junction of the Wabash and Eel rivers. It's called Logansport because it is a port city. It's named after Captain Logan, a Shawnee warrior who was a scout for the United States forces during the War of 1812, a scout for the port city, a river scout. And any student of Civil War history knows how the battles went and what they secured first and how they cut off supply lines and how they took the river ports and all of that. Here in my neck of the woods, these Civil War strategies are well known. It's common knowledge because right here in Cairo, Illinois, yes, that infamous X of the two solar eclipses 7 years apart was right on top of this location around Cairo, Illinois. My town here that I grew up in, we have a Little Egypt parade and a Little Egypt festival every single year. So, like I told you guys in the last video, I have a whole segment on the history of this area. It's very interesting, a little creepy. But that's not the purpose of this video. What I do want to mention is the Battle of Vicksburg. You know, it's one of the most famous battles right at the start of the Civil War, and it had to do with them securing these river routes from Cairo, Illinois, all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Now, obviously, the Mississippi River runs further north than Cairo, Illinois. What they're saying is that's the part that the South, obviously, controlled. So the first thing the North needed to do was to take out that critical transportation corridor and supply line, to cripple the people in those states that it was getting ready to lay siege to. If you are not a history buff, here you go. This is the Battle of Vicksburg. It was a decisive moment, and it was right at the beginning of the war, exactly what we're talking about here in this video. Okay, the Battle of Vicksburg was a decisive Union victory during the American Civil War that divided the Confederacy and cemented the reputation of the Union General Ulysses S. Grant. Union forces waged a campaign to take the Confederate stronghold of Vicksburg, Mississippi, which lay halfway between Memphis to the north and New Orleans to the south. The 47-day siege of Vicksburg eventually gave control of the Mississippi River, a critical supply line to the Union, and was part of the Union's successful Anaconda Plan to cut off all trade to the Confederacy. And that's why they chose to bus thousands upon thousands of these foreign invaders into Logansport, because it is the hub of the Wabash and Eel River. Now, the Wabash River is so strategic because it will take them all the way into the Ohio River, it will take them all the way into the Mississippi River, and it will take them all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, because their military strategy includes them coming down through the Great Lakes and through Ohio. And like we've talked about in the past, these battleground states will be battlegrounds. So up here in northern Indiana, they have secured the ports so that they can move in down the Ohio River and through the Great Lakes. And you know, here in Chicago, also right up here by northern Indiana, our billionaire, elitist, communist governor, J.B. Pritzker, has already signed the bill right here, July 31st, 2023. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker signed a bill last week that would allow for non-U.S. citizens, for foreigners, for the foreigners that came in illegally specifically. This isn't like a benefit he's giving to all of the immigrants who have come before legally and have gone through all of the steps lawfully. No, they don't get any perks. This bill is specifically for the criminals. This is for the illegal immigrants under the guise of, well, it's their pathway. This is their pathway to citizenship. Foreigners get to take over the military and the police force to police U.S. citizens. Isn't that a great idea? It's their pathway to citizenship. So it's done here in Illinois. So as for my region, we're mapping this closely of how far the front lines will get to us. And I have openly shared my own personal dreams and visions over the last, say, 15 years or so concerning this coming attack. The one on the screen right now, my end time vision about the roadblocks on the American interstates that seemed like they were around a holiday, and it included Antifa and ISIS, or Antifa and or ISIS. Now this predated Antifa. I'd never heard of Antifa. This was before 2016 that I had this, before Trump's first election, so it predated all of that. I would have never known even the term Antifa. That's all stuff that I learned afterwards. So I initially thought, well, it had to be ISIS because they had these, the black masks that cover their faces and all of that. But now, here we are all of these years later, a decade later, and I can see exactly what it is. It's both. Now it's all out in the open with the pro-terrorist rallies and the pro-Hamas protests and all of that. They've done this social engineering and this psychological operation to turn people against Israel. I'm not saying Israel's not at fault. What I'm saying is the people running this thing are above that. They're above that. They're not for Israel or for Hamas. The same people that created the nation of Israel in 1948 are the ones who created, the intelligence agencies created the terrorist networks and financed them and armed them and all of that. So I'm not saying either side. I'm saying I'm looking at the enemy above this. Back during the Minneapolis riots where they burned down the cities and everything, it was mostly BLM and Antifa, again, financed by multi-million-dollar corporations. They're like, oh, it's all these disenfranchised grassroots movement. No, it never was. I mean, you guys remember, they even brought pallets of bricks and stuff and just set them in the middle of the road for no reason other than for these people that they have driven to the brink of insanity and radicalized for them to pick up and throw at the windows and destroy things. But now they've joined the next link in the chain, which is the Islamic terrorists. But anyway, my point was about mapping the location of how close I think it will come to where my home is now. And in these visions, both this one about the roadblocks, the interstate blocks, and this one here about the concentration camps and martial law. Now, when I had that one, I was living a lot further north in Illinois. It was actually because of that dream that I sold my house and moved down south to a more rural area. I was only a couple of hours from Chicago, a couple hours south of Chicago, and it did come there. Not the front lines, not the gunfight front lines, but they did lock everybody down. They did set up roadblocks and curfews, and they did eventually monitor everything that you looked at on the internet, which led to taking people to work camps. And I explain all of that in these videos. Now, they deleted my YouTube channel, so all of that archive is gone, but Odyssey did capture a couple of these. I will put the links down below in the description box if you haven't seen these. Most of the people who have followed my channel for years, you've seen them a couple of times. And here's another one of those old deleted videos over on Odyssey that I will put the link for down in the description box, because in this one I was rehashing the dreams and visions that I had had over the years about these attacks that seemed to happen around the holiday season, and I had included some dreams and visions from other people that confirmed that. And I used to, like every holiday season, put up a video or every couple of years and say, these are high watch times, let us not forget. But I haven't done that in years and years, probably 7 years right there. And now it seems timely, like it really could be this holiday season.
There was an attack on the military bases over the holidays when all of the excess military personnel were all gone on leave. So they were bare bones staff on the military bases, and they were able to, the yard crews and stuff had come in, and they had under their mowers and stuff had taken the blades out and mounted weapons under there. So they were able to take the gates and take the armories. So when the attack happened, whatever the attack was happening outside of the military bases, the military personnel were not able to get back to their armories and get armed to fight. So it was some sort of organized thing that they were securing the bases at the same time that there was some other attack going on outside, which reminded me even of my dream which it was very literal, and I am certain will happen at some point. That's how vivid and prophetic this, if you've heard from the Lord, you have. And they had done an attack on American interstates, and we were way back in the line, and you can go, it's ISIS attack on American interstates or something. It's on my channel.
Okay, like I said, all the links will be below in the description box if you want to see the rest of that kind of stuff. But I did want to point that out about them taking over the military bases, because who would have thought 10 or 15 years ago, when I had those visions and the gentleman I was quoting there had his series of visions about them taking over the military bases, nobody would have imagined in a million years that we would be in a situation like this, that Homeland Security would just turn a blind eye to tens of millions of foreign invaders. I mean, after 9/11, Americans are still getting treated like criminals, being searched and patted down and everything else just to take an airplane flight. But that's for law-abiding American citizens with ID who jump through all the hoops. All these foreigners who just come back and forth across our border completely with no ID, no documentation, like them, we don't got to worry about, right? And then, of course, we have the communist Chinese buying up all of the land around our military bases that butts right up to them, literally butts right up to our military bases all across the United States. So just going through a few, here's Camp Pendleton. I was on Camp Pendleton. I lived out there for years in California. And you can see they've bought up more land than the military base even is. Right here, butted up right next to it. Same way with Fort Irwin. Well, of course, I mean, this is the Commie Coast. They own this entire coastline. They own Gavin Newsom. Everybody knows that. In my humble opinion, allegedly.
Oh, hello! Sentinel, the Communist Chinese Dragon here with an important public service announcement. Live in your poop and needles and human sex trafficking and open borders and buy slave goods from China and do what the Justice Department say and put all the good Americans in prison and stay asleep. Your master Xi Jinping has arrived and our puppet Biden bowed down to him. Governor Newsom has also visited and bowed down to our leader, who is also your master. The shithole city of San Francisco, like all the other communist cities we control, has been flooded with fentanyl. But when the dear leader arrives, they clean the streets for him. Hello, poop people. That's what your master Xi Jinping calls you. But he does not look at the poop and needles that you live in. No. All the homeless taken away when your great leader there. And our puppet, Nathan Newsom, tell you, oh, we clean it for Xi Jinping, not for you.
I know folks say, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming into town. That's true, because it's true.
That's how we rub the poop in. Enjoy your shithole cities. You are done. We own Hollywood. We own TikTok. We own almost everything. Now we buy up your farmland. You eat sabaz while we eat the steak.
But yeah, base after base. Here's Hill Air Force Base and Dugway Proving Ground. You can see the land is right butted up right next to him. And this is funny because like Fort Leonard Wood, which is where my dad went to boot camp, and Whiteman Air Force Base, and the Chinese just randomly, out of all this land in the United States, they buy a little plot right by the Fort Leonard Wood, right by the Air Force Base. Same way with the Hawaii military bases, same way with this one, North Carolina. Of course, these are port cities, so you can see how much land they bought up around the port cities. But yeah, that's the situation we're in. Okay, so back to the tens of millions of foreign invaders that they have placed in barracks/hotels in strategic cities all around the United States of America. I actually want to play a clip of a woman who signed a government contract to use her bed and breakfast to take in refugees. And after she did that, now she's scared for her life and she doesn't know how to get out of it, because she realized after they showed up and the events that happened that she was not helping refugees. Now, her bed and breakfast is not in the United States of America, but after I play her testimony, then I will play some clips like the one on the screen right here about the hotels in New York City, because this is going on all around the world. And that is of the utmost importance to understand, because here in America, since we just had an election, everybody's giddy about there might be change, this might fix things. This thing cannot be fixed by a president of the United States, because it's not just happening in the United States. These people who are meeting behind closed doors right now to make the decision, they are not Americans. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying nothing can be fixed. Lots of things can be fixed. For one, with, say, Trump in power, I don't think that I will be thrown in jail for making this video. But we see over in the UK that people who speak against the illegal immigration are absolutely being arrested for their social media posts and thrown in jail. So yes, I believe some things can be fixed, and those are big, enormous things. There are lots of things that can be fixed. But what I'm saying is that this is a world war. These people meeting behind closed doors, weighing out our fate right now, are not Americans, you guys.
England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales. First of all, I want to apologise because I feel I betrayed you. This is going to be very hard for me to do, but it needs to be told. I'm not going to tell you my name. You can just call me the whistleblower, because this needs to be told. I own a small bread and breakfast / hotel on the outskirts between London and Bristol. Exactly where, I won't say. I was commandeered by the office of 10 Downing Street to rehome refugee families. When the first lot of refugees came, there was not one woman, there was not one child. The people that turned up were men from the age of 19 to 30, I would say. I have enough room for about 250 residents. I currently house 150 immigrants. Yes, I did receive quite a large sum of money for doing so. On doing so, the government told me that I had to fire all my staff and they will supply their own, and also that they will supply security guards for the bread and breakfast. Well, about 2 weeks ago, I received a phone call to say that a large parcel will be arriving sometime this evening. Around about 2:30 in the morning, I received another phone call to say that the parcel has arrived, and can I open up the rear servant entrance at the back of the B&B, which I went down and met some army personnel, which kind of surprised me very, very much. The person in charge, I don't know who he was, colonel or whatnot, asked me to show him to a secure room within the B&B, which I did. On doing so, they loaded in roughly between 60 and 70 really big crates. I asked what was in the crates, and I was told that I was not permitted to know. He then handed me a smaller parcel and told me that I will receive a phone call to give me further instructions on what to do and when to open this parcel, which was very strange. So I've had this parcel now for about a week in my office, and I started talking to a friend of mine, and he said, well, do you know what? You don't know what's inside those parcels. It could be anything. It's your property. Whatever's inside your property, you own the rights to open, and I should have a look what it was. And I was debating about it for a little while, and I thought, you know what? You are kind of right. If it's in my property, I want to know what it is. So I opened the small parcel up, and inside was a letter with a list of names and numbers written next to the name. On realizing that each name on the letter was one of the refugees, and there was a smaller box inside the parcel, I opened that and there was a series of keys with numbers on. So I went down to the secure lock where these crates were and noticed that each crate had a number on it and each key had a number on it. So I took 2 keys for 2 of the crates and I opened up the crates. Crate 1, there was a load of AK-47 machine guns. Crate 2 were a number of hand grenades. Now, when I say this, I'm saying this as you could start a new war off with what I was looking at. There was enough ammunition inside one of the crates to easy wipe out my little village. Boom, gone, easy. Now I'm a bit stuck because I don't want these refugees here anymore, but I'm contracted to house them for a period of time. I don't know if I can give the government their money back and tell them to sweet off or not, I don't know. All I do know is in good faith, I cannot allow these men to have these crates. I am going to move them away from my property to a secure garage that I have not too far, because I'm not going to be responsible for allowing our government to kill us, the innocent people.
Name of a restaurant in Chinese, it might not work. Is the army turning this thing into a migrant shelter? Why are you guys here? It's a hotel. Why is the army at this hotel?
We're here at the request of the state of New York.
The state of New York has put the army into hotels? What the hell is that about? This is a public hotel, right? What is the army doing in this hotel? Have you guys taken over this hotel? What is?
So you can't record.
What the fuck is the army doing taking over civilian hotels in the middle of New York City? I can't record. So this is what I'm talking about, people. Do you think those guys are there to help you or me? What is going on?
We have hundreds of videos of whether it's Asians or whether it's Middle Easterners or whether it's Africans or Chinese. They're wearing the same boots, the same shirts, the same backpacks, and you know military when you look at it, and they look like officer corps.
Totally. And we've got Vice President Harris claiming in interviews that it's President Trump's fault. But, you know, 2 clicks in, you can see on the White House website that she was in charge of a 3-country staging area with a lot of private stakeholders who want cheap labor, with the State Department and the UN, who are bringing in these clearly identically dressed, identical sources for these clothing, brand new clothing, clean clothing. Ordinary citizens don't look like this, right?
Yeah, for folks who don't know, the way we've always, even with covert troops in World War I and World War II, the Germans and the Allies would say, look at their shoes. Even their plain clothes, they're wearing the same boots. You know that's a unit. Look at this. And it's over and over again. Asians, Middle Easterners, it's always the same boots and backpacks.
Absolutely. And there's also this extraordinary, and this is more like ambiguous, but I've observed immigrants and refugees coming into countries for decades as a journalist, conflict areas around the world. And they never act entitled because they're grateful to be safe. They're grateful to be here. They've come to this country. They want to come to this country. And it's not a sense of impunity. The people coming in, being shipped into Brooklyn, shipped into the
swaggering.
They are literally, where I live in Brooklyn, they've commandeered the sidewalks and they're driving their motorized bikes crazily along the sidewalks, scaring elderly people, disabled people, children, and literally the locals who are all different colors, right? From all different countries, but they are Americans, right? They've been here, they care about this country. They are saying to one another, who are these people? Everything has changed. They are showing no regard or respect for our culture or our laws. And the signal isn't their attitude. That could be cultural or culture shock or whatever. It's the fact that our law and order, our law enforcement has clearly been directed to let it unfold, if not to facilitate it.
Questions at the Pentagon. I don't know at what level this is. It just seems like it's informal discussions. I guess it's understandable they would have those discussions. It also, Scott, is it?
Look, I don't like this because what's Donald Trump supposed to think? He's sitting down there, he's the president-elect, and now he's got to read in the newspaper tonight that the unelected bureaucracy of the federal government is having meetings at some level about how to thwart or countermand the commander-in-chief. I don't care if it's at the Pentagon or at the HUD or Ag Department. It doesn't matter. The unelected bureaucracy of this government answers to the civilian and duly elected leadership that we just did. And what if you were in his shoes and you just won the popular vote with a clear mandate, and now you got to read that these unelected bureaucrats are plotting against you? What would you think? If they have problems, let me finish. If they have problems, they should not have meetings that then leak to the press. If they have ideas or things, they should call the president's office and say, hey, we'd like to have some discussions for planning purposes. But secret meetings that leak? Terrible way to get off to a start with the new administration.
Well, I agree that that's maybe not the best way to do it. However, Trump has set them up to be in this situation where they think that he's coming after them.
CNN and others are all reporting the Pentagon's been having secret meetings about how they're not going to follow orders of Trump. And now remember, Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, famously called the communist Chinese and said, don't worry, Trump doesn't have the nuke codes. He's not in command, which is a military coup in waiting, and administratively and diplomatically is a coup over the presidency and over the people. And then you've got the clip already played that went viral of Pompeo when Trump got raided last year at Mar-a-Lago going, yeah, he looks pretty criminal. He's a criminal. He'll do some prison. Ha, ha. Trump hadn't seen that. Now he has seen that. You're not getting the cabinet Pompeo. And Bill Gates has scurried back after being caught working with Kamala Harris behind the scenes, giving her at least $50 million, saying he wants to be friends with Donald Trump. Well, nobody wants to be friends with you. Your wife left you. You've got criminal charges against you in the Netherlands and India. No, sir.
Also, we're very focused on the data we're collecting from surveillance efforts. What's being said on social media platforms?
Every person on social media should be verified by their name.
We have launched an effort to be able to counter some of the negativity and reach out to people when we see hate speech being spoken about on online platforms.
They need to verify every single person on their outlet and I want it by name.
We're already in a globalist coup. And then they come out with a DOD directive in the middle of September, and it doesn't trend #1 for over 2 weeks. And to his credit, Ron Paul 2 days ago talks about it. He's got so much credibility, people actually go, we better go to the DOD website and look at it. So the point is, we're moving too slow, people. My films are free. Police State 1, Police State 2, Police State 3, Police State 4, Police State 5. And everything in this DOD document is in other documents word for word. The difference is they're now making it public, because what do you do before you roll out a long-planned operation? You get ahead of it and tailor it so that people are prepared for it. And that means they're getting ready for civil unrest, martial law, because they're getting ready to create the triggers.
Several weeks before the election was even over, they had already moved on to Plan B, and they had sent out this directive to mobilize the United States military against the United States citizens, even authorizing the use of lethal force. So this isn't crowd control. This is, you can shoot to kill your own people. This is the Pentagon declaring war on its own country.
Questions at the Pentagon. I don't know at what level this is. It just seems like it's informal discussions. I guess it's understandable they would have those discussions. It also, Scott, is it?
Look, I don't like this because what's Donald Trump supposed to think? He's sitting down there, he's the president-elect, and now he's got to read in the newspaper tonight that the unelected bureaucracy of the federal government is having meetings at some level about how to thwart or countermand the commander-in-chief. I don't care if it's at the Pentagon or at the HUD or Ag Department. It doesn't matter. The unelected bureaucracy of this government answers to the civilian and duly elected leadership that we just did. And what if you were in his shoes and you just won the popular vote with a clear mandate, and now you got to read that these unelected bureaucrats are plotting against you? What would you think? If
But
they
I
have
think there's a
problems,
reason
if
for
they have,
that,
let me
though.
finish. If they have problems, they should not have meetings that then leak to the press. If they have ideas or things, they should call the president's office and say, hey, we'd like to have some discussions for planning purposes. But secret meetings that leak, terrible way to get off to a start with the new administration.
Well, I agree that that's maybe not the best way to do it. However, Trump has set them up to be in this situation where they think that he's coming after them.
So if you're wondering why after the election the entire machine turned into, oh, they're all so sweet and kind, and well, it was a free and fair election, so everything's fine, it's just fine. Now they're all sweetie-peaty after all these years of calling us garbage and deplorables and getting us fired from our jobs, debanking us, rounding us up, all the lawfare and the indictments and the impeachments and the false Russian collusions and everything they have put us through. All of a sudden, Plan B kicks in and they're sweetie-peaty. They're like, oh, that's fine that Trump won. It's our own fault. We need to, rethink. Yeah, you're going to rethink things now. Suddenly, within one day, you had a turnaround from wanting to put us in re-education camps that we have played the clips at length over and over and over. Biden standing behind his pulpit, dividing the nation, trying to turn our neighbors and families against us, calling us domestic terrorists, actually saying, don't you dare not call them domestic terrorists, calling us racists, calling us fascists, calling us Hitler, calling us deplorables, calling us garbage. Like, after all of that, for the last 8 years of our lives, you have made our lives a living hell. And now, bam, in 24 hours, you're sweetie-peaty. It's an eerie silence. Oh, everything's okay. Well, we're the good guys, really. See how we know how to respect a free and fair election while you guys protested. Because their narrative that they're broadcasting, this DOD directive came out right now while Biden and Harris are in office. Trump did not send out this DOD directive, right? This is the communist regime who sent this out. And yet, simultaneously, through their media propagandists, they are broadcasting that, oh, Trump's going to use the military to kill you guys. He's going to round up black people and kill them. He's going to do all this. It's like, Trump's not even in office. What are you talking about? Hopefully these messages will get out to people and they will realize this is not us. We don't want this. We want peace. But make no mistake, this is war, and they have prepared for every contingency. If the military, the United States military, keeps its oath and obeys the Constitution and obeys posse comitatus and does not turn on its own people, on the American citizens, they have armies in place. They have brought in over 20 million foreign invaders and placed them around our country. They have troops right here on the screen all the way back to the Obama era. This is government plates. These are government plates who were bringing in these illegal immigrants, and they had been completely supplied with fake documents. They had been supplied with uniforms. They had U.S. military uniforms with all the correct insignias. They had sea bags here with all of their military issue gear. These were illegal immigrants that were accidentally arrested. This is why they hate ICE and stuff, why they're trying to overthrow, right? Defund the police, because they have their new police. And they don't want their military overthrow of the United States of America thwarted. And right here, this was one of those accidental arrests where they found 13 illegal immigrants in a government vehicle supplied with fake uniforms and fake IDs ready to come in. So if this thing does pop off, and again, I'm not saying that it will, that was not the message I got from God. The message I got from God was they are meeting behind closed doors right now, debating whether they have to launch early. But what I was getting at with this clip is that even if our own military and police officers refuse to serve the Marxist regime, if they command them to come after American citizens the way the UK police officers and judges have obeyed the communists and they have begun arresting their own citizens, if our patriots in the military and police forces refuse to do that, right here on the screen, all the way back during the Obama administration, they started falsifying documents and issuing gear to people who will be pretending to be U.S. military. So a lot of people are going to be discombobulated if this thing does kick off and they think that the U.S. military is attacking their town or arresting them, when it could actually be these illegal migrants, these foreign invading troops whom they have armed and supplied with uniforms to deceive Americans. There will be a lot of Americans who will willingly get on those relocation evacuation buses, not knowing that they are being taken off to the camps. But when we are talking about what the Marxist infiltrators in our government have done to betray our country and to arm and provide fake IDs and all of this type of thing to our enemies, this is small potatoes compared to, of course, Afghanistan. That again was written off as incompetence when obviously a kindergartner can tell that this was treason. They armed our enemies with some of the top of the line military equipment. And there is some equipment that a lot of people haven't heard about, like the biometric equipment, intelligence agency level equipment to make false identifications. And obviously all of this technology wasn't just to sit in the deserts with the Taliban. It's already shown up in conflicts involving India, China, the cartels in Mexico.
They didn't just leave behind $80 billion in weapons. They left behind the biometric capability that the NSA uses. They left behind the people trained in using those systems. They left behind access to those systems. So not only do you have tens of thousands of Afghans being trained inside these religious schools at the mosques, who are being trained in bomb making and small arms and all the rest of it, they are now able to issue them passports with altered biometrics. So they cannot be, they do not show up in the terrorist database.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they gave them cloaking power.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And
So Afghan terrorists given NSA cloaking.
And
that's spy level stuff.
The State Department did it. The intelligence agencies did it. I mean, there is.
But that alone is bombshell.
Yep.
Cloaking new identity technology given by Biden to Al-Qaeda and ISIS.
Yes, and this doesn't just come from, U.S. intelligence sources. This also comes from Afghan intelligence sources. This is what they've literally, I mean, you can be a known Afghan terrorist, have altered your biometrics. You can either cross the southern border or you can fly in to an American airport, or by the way, to a European airport. I mean, Afghanistan has become the terrorist training center for the entire world. So, Eamon, while we're all focused on this humanitarian crisis that has been engineered by our own leaders, right, and we're being subjected to this information campaign, what is the reality that we're missing in terms of, I know you had a piece out that said there were 2 days in May where more Chinese people came across the southern border than in the whole of 2021, in the entire year. We've talked extensively about the Venezuelan cartels, particularly Tren de Aragua, which is a cartel that was created by Chavez in Venezuela inside the prison system. So they've emptied those prisons now, which means not just random criminals. This is an organized criminal cartel that has come into the United States that is working with the Mexican cartels and backed by the Chinese. Can you tell us about the reality of that and the significance of it?
Yes, you mentioned before that we've never really had policies or operations against the Mexican cartels. The Mexican cartels went from just criminal organizations to now a parallel government. They are foreign terrorist organizations and should be designated as such. But because we've done nothing to them or against them, we've never countered them. They completely operationally control both sides of our border. They control in Mexico, but they also control our side. Now, many people say that that's not the case. because they don't see the hyperviolence that you do there. But because they're insurgents, they actually have a foreign strategic policy on how to operate inside the United States and control the areas, U.S. territory, through other means. And that's what they're doing. And they've gone on for over a decade now in controlling this. So really, the Mexican cartels have built a Silk Road, not just at our border, but to every single one of our communities. And because the Mexican cartels have done so, every single one of our adversaries, both state and non-state, realize that in order to get access to our communities, to disrupt our communities, to destabilize it, to destroy it, and reap massive financial gain at the same time, like what the CCP is doing by weaponizing Mexican cartels through their drug warfare against us. They realized in order to do that, they must work with the Mexican cartels who have already built that infrastructure into every single one of our communities. If you look at the data, our encounters with Venezuelans roughly in 2017 was roughly about 2,600. Now, fast forward to 2023, our encounters with Venezuelans was 334,000. And that is all due to Biden's open borders policies.
So, but Eamon, what's interesting here is that Trinidad as a Venezuelan cartel is not in conflict with the Mexican cartels. I mean, how did that happen?
In order to be successful, they must make alliances. And Trinidad, as you said before, is backed by the Maduro regime. That Maduro regime, Venezuela, has its own threat network. That threat network includes Iran, Russia, and China. When the Mexican cartels are also working with the CCP in terms of fentanyl precursors, in terms of money laundering operations, in terms of bulk cash smuggling, you name it.
Okay, well, I could go on forever, but you guys know all about it. I'm sure you get it. Hopefully I delivered this message sufficiently with the seriousness and the urgency that the Lord delivered it to me. This is not a game, folks. And our enemies who are plotting against us are not incompetent clowns like Kamala or Faux Biden. They are highly organized and they mean business. We are surrounded. Now is not the time to lay down the sword and pick up the party cup. Now is the time to put on the full armor of God, and we fight with the sword of the Spirit. Stay sober, stay vigilant, and stay in prayer. So this election, I don't mean to steal anybody's joy or dampen your celebration, but I have a message from the Lord, and that is don't be distracted or fooled, because this election is not the end of the battle. It's the beginning. So God bless you and your families. God bless the USA. And God save us all.
As a fire, voice of thunder, tearing through the sky in wonder. Dressed in light, we see him coming on a horse that's white like lightning. Do you see him? Do you see him? Battle has been won. We have been liberated back from the